Adam Richins, God bless you, sir. You came back. You came back.
I'm back. Round 2, I guess, as they say.
God bless it. Listen, I want to ask you to come back in and talk about a couple things, transmission lines and rooftop solar. But before we do that, I had Representative John Gannon in and had a great conversation with him. He brought up disparities in rates between large load customers, residential customers, irrigation customers, and there are a lot of happenings in this, right? There are a lot of reasons why large load customers pay less, why residential customers or irrigation customers pay more. But I wanted to ask you, and you haven't told me, and I told you not to tell me, but correct me if I'm wrong, there are a couple reasons why irrigation customers pay more than, I'll focus on 3, okay? And I want you to confirm or deny these. Irrigation customers pay more than large load like industrial customers.
Per kilowatt hour.
Per kilowatt hour. Okay. Here it is. 3 reasons. 1, anybody using an enormous amount of a product consistently 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, they will likely get a discount from the supplier compared to somebody who only purchases, let's say, 5 months a year of something, right? So you're going to get a discount if you're like, I want a lot of it. I want it consistently. You can take it to the bank. Here you go. And there it is.
I don't know what I'd call it. You're generally right. I don't know that I would call it a discount because the way it works is you have a cost of the system. So let's say it's a manufacturer. Their system costs X. They have volumes coming in to pay for that system. So you're right. They're using the system more. More volumes offset that cost.
Gotcha.
So that's why their kilowatt hour rate is a little bit less, is because it's a set cost. They're paying back with revenues. They don't have to pay the higher rate because there's so much volume that they're paying back with, as opposed to irrigation folks who use their pumps 5 months out of the year, and then there's no more volume to help offset the cost of the service for irrigation.
You're
customers.
not amortizing it or distributing the cost of this system over 12 months, 365 days a year. Okay.
Correct. And even some manufacturers are 24/7. So they're really, the volume of energy is a ton. So they're maybe paying 6 cents a kilowatt hour versus 9. Both sets of customers are paying their way to offset the costs that they cause the system.
Gotcha.
It's just a different volume, so it's a different rate.
Okay. So we have volume discount, or let's say volume amortization.
Yeah.
Okay. However you want to put it. You also have time of year, right? So the manufacturing 24/365, they're covering across the entire year where, you don't have a huge draw or as big a draw on power versus like August when you have a gigantic draw on power, or June or July, gigantic draw on power across the system with residential, manufacturing, and then irrigation. So it's like, okay, now you're drawing power at the peak time of the year when we need the most power. Now, that means that we don't just generate our own power, but we have to go to the power market and say, okay, like we're drawing all of the power we can make, be that hydro, be it gas, be it solar, be it wind, whatever, and we need more. And that means that we have to go to places and be like, okay, what do you got? And they're like, all right, you can buy this, but it's not going to be at the discount from your homegrown power.
Well, and even more so, we will go to the market and bring energy to us, but the generation resources we have are stacked. So we're going to run the ones that are least cost first.
Right.
And then over time, as we need more energy, we'll run the ones that are more expensive. So not only at that peak time are we going out to the market and buying more expensive energy because everybody needs it at that time, it's economics. We are running our more expensive generation units to meet that peak time as well. Right. So hydros are cheapest, and then it stacks from there. And there are days like right now where we have facilities just sitting there not running because it's not economic to run it. The market's not expensive enough for us to sell it. It's too expensive to run it. We don't actually need it, so it sits idle.
Right. And you have options that are draw options like a gas generation plant, right? You can draw on the gas pipeline. You guys have gas rights. You're like, okay, fine. We could get this gas generation if we need it. You also have a very similar mechanism with, let's say, Hell's Canyon Hydro, where it's like, okay, we have this water stored up. We can run it if we need it. But if we don't need it, we can just sit here and like let that water store up. And, you got the,
yeah, like right now, blah, blah, blah. A lot of our gas fleet's probably not running because it's not a high energy use time. wintertime. It's the morning.
Gotcha.
It's not very cold yet.
Okay.
And so it's just sitting there.
Okay.
In the summertime, hydro, we're going to save our water because water is the fuel where we can. So if there's a lot of solar at the beginning of the day, we're going to draw down our hydro to make sure to save that water for later in the day when prices are really expensive. And we want to, instead of going and buy it on the market, we want to use it ourselves.
Okay, so we have volume, we have the time of year, and then the X factor, which again, confirm if I'm right or wrong. You are a regulated monopoly for distribution and transmission. Okay, you're not a regulated monopoly for generation.
I would say it's quasi, but we can talk about that later.
Okay. Yep. And again, we don't have to get so much into the weeds. But the point is, if you say, okay, look, during the other 7 months of the year, we only need, 3,500 megawatt capacity, right? And you're like, okay, that's fine. 3,500 megawatt capacity, that's for the lights that turn on and off every single day. That's for the manufacturer that runs 24 hours a day. That's for every other customer. And then 5 months of the year, we have this additional 1,000 megawatt draw. Okay. And I'm just making up these numbers. So you go from 3,500 max draw theoretically to 4,500 max draw. You, Idaho Power, could be like, all right, why don't we do this? Why don't we go out and build another 1,000 megawatts of capacity for this 1,000 draw that only occurs 5 months of the year? And we know that we will need that and we'll be able to provide cheaper power to them for the 5 months, but for the other 7 months, it's going to sit there kind of idle. So now you go to the Public Utility Commission and you're like, hey, public utility, this is our idea. We're going to build all this additional 1,000 megawatt generation, and we're going to build it pretty much just for this 5 months of the year so we can give the 5 months of the year irrigation farmers cheaper power. And they're like, okay, but the other 7 months, you're like, no, the other 7 months, we don't really need it because we really only max out at like 3,500 megawatt draw, not 4,500. The Public Utility Commission looks and you're like, get the hell out of here. You're not going to pass on the cost to every customer of having an additional 1,000 megawatt capacity for this one customer who only uses it 5 months of the year. No. How else could you get that power? You're like, well, we could generate as much as we possibly could in-house, and then we just go to the markets, and we just got to fill that gap with the markets, whatever those prices are, and we do the best we can. They're like, yeah, go ahead and do that, because we're not going to pass on the cost of you building a whole bunch of generation or putting out a request for bid for other people to make this generation when you only need it for this customer for 5 months. That's not fair to the other customers. Is that accurate?
That's pretty accurate. But the way we go through this process, we have something called the Integrated Resource Plan. It happens every 2 years, and it's a 20-year plan that looks into the future. So it's not necessarily Idaho Power saying we should build these certain generation resources, we should have this transmission. Sure. We have these sophisticated models. They literally take days to run because they look at every hour of every day, the entire market for 20, 30 years, and they run every second of every day. Should we be importing? Should we be exporting? Should we be building? Should we not? It's called the Aurora modeling system. Sure. We go through that process. It has all these different inputs, and it spits out what it says Idaho Power should do based on the assumptions. It's a public process. Sure. People can give input. So more what we do is we go to the commission and say, this is what the modeling results were. This is the preferred portfolio that was chosen for cost and reliability by those models.
Got it.
And then the commission says, okay, that looks like a good preferred portfolio. Generally, that's probably how you should serve your load. But it's not going to be perfect. Then we have to go out and do a request for proposal to the entire world and say, hey, we have this need. World, tell us what you have out there. A bunch of different companies bid in, not Idaho Power. We bid in as well. And then the commission makes sure that whatever project is picked is least cost, least risk for customers.
And when you're talking about projects, these are like, okay, we need another 200 megawatt capacity.
Right.
You put out the request for proposal to say like, hey, everybody who can generate power, please present a proposal for how you could come up with 200 megawatts. This is what we need. This is the type of power we need, base load, or we need intermittent. We need whatever, but please send a proposal to Idaho Power, and Idaho Power's own team is like, hang on, guys, we're going to throw in a bid too. And then you say to your team, you're like, okay, great, give us the best you got. And then everybody, the 10 different companies come to the table, one of which is Idaho Power, and they present those bids. Sometimes the Idaho Power team has the least cost best answer. Other times they do not. It's like Acme Company X is like, oh, dang, they came up with 200 and they can do it cheaper than we can. We got to go with theirs.
We compete just like everybody else in that forum. And I think last RFP, we had 200 different projects, and an independent evaluator that works on behalf of the regulator walks through that process and makes sure it's done correctly. And the same modeling I talked to you about, the IRP, is also applied to this RFP, because it's going to look at each resource, and you can put, and let's say it's a natural gas resource. Hey, put that in the model and see what the cost is for the life of that resource for our entire system. Now take that one out, put a transmission line instead in the model so it allows it to import maybe from different markets. It's going to come up with a different number. Ultimately, the modeling is going to spit out what it thinks you should do. And 9.5 out of 10 times, we're going to follow that modeling. And that's what is presented to the commissioners. And then
they can decide what to do.
Then they can decide what to do. Yeah.
God bless him, man. Okay. Well, again,
quite a process.
Yeah. Thank you for outlining this, because again, after speaking with Representative Gannon, I was thinking a lot like, okay, why is this? Right? Because if you don't, and I didn't know these things until right now, right? But I was suspecting like, okay, it has to be at least some part volume, right? It has to be at least some part time of year. And then it also, if I'm trying to be fair with power generation and capacity, it wouldn't be fair to do, like add all of this for somebody who's only using it for 5 months of the year, right? And again, if you don't think through those things, you're like, well, this isn't really like, why do we have all these different rates? It's like, well, there's a real reason here. So anyway,
well, think about residential customers and their volume. I mean, a lot of folks go to work, they are not using any energy. So they even have a higher rate than irrigators on a per kilowatt basis. They do. But all these rate classes are just trying to pay for the cost of the system that they cause. And that's what a rate case does. It looks at irrigation customers. You decide what is the cost of the system for them, and then that is allocated to them. And then depending on the volume, you then get your rate.
Now, do the residential people pay more than the irrigators because, excuse me, per kilowatt hour, right, on average? Because like essentially overnight, we almost use no electricity. Like our refrigerators are running, our, maybe your air conditioning's running on and off. That's the coolest part of the day in the summer, or your furnace is turning on or off, cycling on or off.
Yeah, it's all based on cost of the system and the volume.
Okay, so we don't use a high enough volume consistently, to warrant like this large payoff or amortization.
To offset the infrastructure that's used for that rate class.
Gotcha. So if we used way more power, if residential's like
at the right time,
so if we kept our houses at like 50 degrees instead of like 70 or 72, and we did that at times, like I'm like doing it overnight and until noon, and then I turn everything off and then I turn it back on at 10 p.m. and then overnight until noon, we would get a lower cost for electricity per kilowatt average on hour because we'd be increasing the volume and we'd be increasing it at times when the power is the cheapest.
Right. Time of use, it all matters.
Oh my gosh, man. These are wild times. So that's why it's like, no, but I'm pumping my AC from like the, noon to 9 p.m.
And we need to be ready for that.
Right.
We need to build for your max use. And you only use that max use a little bit of the year. But it costs money to make sure the wires are big enough. The generation resources are there. We call them fixed costs. The fixed costs have to be there to serve that home. Even if you have rooftop solar, when the sun goes down, we still have to have all that infrastructure ready to serve you. And that costs something. And you want each rate class to pay off those costs, even rooftop solar users to pay off the costs that they cause the company. Now, they bring a benefit too. So there's a little bit of an offset there.
So we could drive down all of our costs if we just go like nocturnal. we sleep during the day.
Turns out energy has an expense. Yes.
Oh my God. Awesome. Well, listen, thank you for that. I really appreciate it. And again, I know there are a lot more nuances, but you gave me the rough and dirty on it. So great. Talk to me about rooftop solar, because this is one that I had a long conversation yesterday with somebody who was, again, his daughter, I believe, got rooftop solar, and they were really not happy with rooftop solar and by consequence, Idaho Power. Now, mind you, Idaho Power did not sell them rooftop solar, nor did Idaho Power give them any information that they was not accurate. This customer, rooftop solar customer, got information from a salesman, had a projected payoff, had a projected idea of what Idaho Power, what the rate would be for Idaho Power. Because of course they're like, and I've heard the pitch too. They're like, hey, Idaho Power increased their rate by, oh, dude, it's going to be a glut of sales because like Idaho Power increased the rate by 10% or 13% last year. This is the chart for what it's going to be in like 20 years. People are like, oh my gosh, let's buy rooftop solar. Now, mind you, that salesman is not saying, yeah, there's a 13% global increase this year, but there was like a 10% decrease last year. So it's like this oscillating system. They're not articulating.
Well, we talked about this last time. It's 1.2% on average every year for the last 10 years. That's not talked about.
Right. So
in these sales. Or I shouldn't say it's not. Sometimes it's not, right? I don't know the salesperson.
If I'm an unscrupulous salesman, I focus only on the thing that makes my sale better, which is if you look at this 12-month time frame, you're going to get an exponential increase that's going to be you don't look at like, okay, over 15 years, it's only been 1.5%. So like, don't worry about it. So you have people that are getting taken by that. Now, part of that equation is how much Idaho Power is going to be increasing per year, right? Where they're like, hey, 10, 13, whatever percent. Part of it is also the payback that they're going to get. So like, hey, let's put a huge system on. So like, I know you only use like, I don't know, whatever the kilowatt hours might be, like 10 kilowatt hours, or what's an average? It's like 500, 600, 7. Okay. So you only use 700 kilowatt hours per day.
Kilowatt hours is probably like 1,000. Sorry.
Okay, great. 1,000 kilowatt hours per day on an average home. They're like, but we're going to put a 1,500. First off, you'll get a rebate. Yep. So like, this is what the salesperson says, right? You'll get a rebate. Which is going
away, by the way, but yes.
Right. Okay, so get it now while you can. The point is, you get this $1,500, or excuse me, you get a rebate. Great. But let's put 50% more solar capacity on your roof than you actually need, because what we'll do is we'll sell that back to Idaho. How much are you paying right now? It's like they'll pay you back at 12 cents a kilowatt hour because that's what they're buying it from somebody else or whatever it might be. But what actually happens is like, yeah, customers may be paying, residential, like retail power customers may be paying 12 cents a kilowatt hour at some time. But that's not what Idaho Power is buying power for at wholesale, which is right. So I, as the unscrupulous salesperson, throw out all these statistics, all these numbers. I have my graphs, I have my charts. I'm using the right colored pens. I'm like smiling real nice. And the customer purchases it. And then the reality of the market and rooftop solar comes to bear. So explain this, if you could, hit me with like what people really should be thinking about with rooftop solar. Not saying they should or shouldn't do it, but what the real numbers are and why the reimbursement is low, why you're not increasing your rates at an aggressive rate like people are saying, all of this.
Well, let's talk about the case first. And so the case related to rooftop solar,
is this case, like a public utility case? Okay.
Yeah. It was not, can people put solar on their roof? That was not an issue in the case. It was not, can they offset their own use with rooftop solar? It was that last piece that you mentioned. When there are exports to the grid, how much should, not Idaho Power customers pay for that excess energy? Because it's actually the customers through the power cost mechanism that pay for those costs 100%.
Okay, so if I may just real fast. What you're saying is when people talk about getting reimbursed for excess power, they're not getting reimbursed by Idaho Power. They're getting reimbursed by the other people that are purchasing power from Idaho Power. That money, they pay for that money and it just flows through Idaho Power.
It's through Idaho Power, but it's through a mechanism called the PCA, and customers pay 100% of that. We don't make money. We don't lose money. It's a complete pass through.
Gotcha.
So if there's a subsidy, for example, in rooftop solar, it's paid for by non-rooftop solar customers.
So if you have solar that you have an excess of solar that you're putting back onto the grid, and I do not, through the PCA, I'm purchasing that power from you through Idaho Power. Idaho Power does not make money in this exchange. Correct. I buy it at cost. So if you, the solar provider, right, the solar producer at, the guy down the street who has solar, if you're getting 12 cents a kilowatt hour for your solar.
That's paid for by customers.
That's paid
PCA.
for, right. Okay, keep going.
And it's a credit. It's not a payment, but in any event.
Sure.
So the question in this case was, what should the value of that export be? For years, it's been around 11, 12%.
Sure.
Or excuse me, 11, 12 kilowatt dollars per kilowatt.
Okay. Cents per kilowatt?
Cents per kilowatt.
Right.
You get dollars and megawatt mixed up, but yes.
Right.
Cents.
So that's like $120 per megawatt.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, great.
Yep. And so the market throughout the years that we've seen, if you were to go to the market and buy and sell this energy, it was about 2 cents.
Okay.
So there was a pretty significant difference there.
So if I, again, just breaking down step by step, if I as a customer, if I'm trying to draw power, Idaho Power would be buying that power at 2 cents a kilowatt and then transmitting it to me at some rate. But through the PCA, if you, the dude down the street with solar, you're getting paid 12 cents a kilowatt by me, the customer who's trying to buy that power. But if that's not the actual market price, because the actual market price is like, no, we could get that for 2 cents, but we have to force these customers to buy it for 12 cents from the person with Rooftop solar.
Yeah, a value of 12 cents. Yeah.
Gotcha.
It's a subsidy. And the question, Idaho Power doesn't decide whether that subsidy should exist or not exist on that export rate. What Idaho Power does is provides the math to show this is what the market was and this is what we actually paid. It's 5 times above market, so you're doing a subsidy at that point. And because of the subsidy, non-rooftop users are paying for that through the PCA. Mm-hmm. So commission, kind of you decide whether you think you want to do this subsidy or not. Here's the numbers. What the commission came back and said is it's a subsidy. We're not going to go down to the actual market rate it's a market rate through what's called the Western Energy Imbalance Market. We're not going to do that. We're going to go a little bit above, knowing that there's still a little bit of a subsidy, but we don't want people who've put solar on their roof to be impacted as much. So they, it's like a 4 cent instead of a 2 cent, but it's a lot lower than the 12 cents. Now, what the commission has said the last 3 or 4 years is, hey, everybody in the rooftop world, they signaled that they are probably going to do that. It's a subsidy, but the problem is an installer may or may not tell their customers that, hey, be careful because this rate could decrease. And so what's happened over time is it's decreased this last couple years, and folks have got upset about that. What's interesting is the first year this change was in place, market prices were really high. So it actually benefited rooftop solar users because of the Ukraine war, natural gas prices. What you could buy energy on the market was inflated. So we didn't hear a ton then because that price that was given back was pretty high. We only started hearing it now because market prices have gone down, stabilized back to normal, and you're back to that on average 2 to 3 cents versus that 12 cents.
And man, let's be clear. You, Idaho Power, are hearing about this. You have zero control over this. You don't make a profit from this. You're not making the rules on this. You are merely executing what the Public Utility Commission tells you to do.
We were told to do a study for the Public Utilities Commission, and we put forward that study. So I wouldn't say we don't have control, because our job really is to show the facts of the system, the costs, how they're reimbursed, all the different things we talked about earlier. So we put that forward, but then correct, we do not decide what that credit should be. Nor should we decide whether there should be a subsidy or not. You could argue it should be the PUC that decides, or you could argue that it's the legislature that should decide whether there's a subsidy or not related to rooftop solar.
Right.
That's not our job. Our job is to show the math.
Right. And when I'm saying control, I'm not saying you're not participating in that.
Yeah.
PUC's like, hey.
We don't make the decision.
Right. It's like, Adam, go get this study. You're like, okay, I'll get here are the numbers. Like, here's the study. Like, and guys, like, you figure it out. And you figure it out either as in the PUC or like, hey, legislature, like, these are the numbers, right? Like, what do you go to, like the Office of Performance Evaluations or something? And you're like, hey guys, like, here are the numbers. And they're like, great. And then they take the study and they pass it on to the legislature. It's like, you guys, listen, this is a you guys problem.
Yep.
This is not like an us problem, because we're just going to do whatever you guys want us to do. And you eat popcorn and watch them argue.
Well, and I'll even take it a step further. There is an argument that it should be higher than the 2 or 3 cents that we hear a lot. And the argument is that, look, more rooftop solar is good for the environment. It's better than fossil fuels. There's a societal cost that exists down the road by burning fossil fuels versus, using solar. you should bake that into your cost because it's going to be a real cost 30 years from now from climate change and some of those types of things. Again, we're not really saying one way or the other whether there's societal costs. We just know that that's not a cost that's allowed in the overall math of whether there's a subsidy or not. Different parties can argue that with the commission. The commission will decide whether they want to put societal costs in there or not and say there's more of a benefit than what's shown here than what's on the market because of the costs that you're not going to have to pay down the road 30 years from now because of climate change. But generally, our commission hasn't gone that route.
Okay, I got like when you're talking about this, my hands are sweating. I can't. When I was learning jiu-jitsu, when I was like a blue belt, right? That's one level up from a wife. So like I don't know anything, right?
Yep.
Like when I got my blue belt, I thought I was like Superman. I was like, yes, like I did it.
Yeah.
And again, I don't know anything.
You still do it, by the way?
Oh yeah,
Yep.
every day. I've been sick this week, but yeah, every day. I built like I love every single second of it. Like you have to have something where what's interesting? I got leading into COVID, I was doing like a lot of pro fights. I know that sounds wild, but like I was doing a lot of pro fights. I was supposed to, have this big fight with this very famous MMA guy. It was a jiu-jitsu competition. So no punching or kicking, the moneymaker here. But anyways, I was an absolute tank and I had been doing it forever, right? COVID hits, the number one thing you can't do if you're worried about close contact is jiu-jitsu. So I go through this long period of time where I can't train. It's terrible. I end up, finally, thank God, I'm able to move to Idaho. I get going again. And what was so beautiful about that first like 6 months back is it was absolute hell. Like I had lost all my core strength. I couldn't move correctly. Like my legs and arms were not in concert. Like nothing was working. And I was like, what the hell is going on? And it was one of the most beautiful reminders that it's like, no, listen, you're not special, right? Like jiu-jitsu works and these things work, but there's nothing inherently unique about you. You can do cool things, but only if you're putting in the time. And if you don't, you're not special. Like you have to remember that. And that was like, anyway, yeah, it was.
It's also
it was
a reminder
great.
how much activity is important in your life. And I remember during that COVID time, I had 2 boys and they're teenagers now, but they were playing basketball. And, the nice thing about Idaho is it stopped for a little bit, but then the tournaments went back. And honestly, we had some of the best tournaments ever in Idaho because Washington and Oregon basketball players were coming to play in Idaho tournaments every weekend. And so you're playing teams you'd never seen before, but just watching these kids get back into activity and how important it is to not only focus on your mind, but also your body. It's key for a lot of us. And
yeah, man,
talk about a competitive sport, jiu-jitsu. That's a competitive sport.
Yeah. I also realized it really made me realize that I have all kinds of mental health issues and disabilities. I just manage them. Right. If I don't have the systems in place to manage them, they take root and I go into like mass depression. I get like manic phases. I have all kinds of health problems. But if I insert the right system, they all go away.
Especially people with a lot of energy, type A people, a lot of energy. You need to get that out.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a little bit of that in me too.
Yeah.
And so you got to find a way to get it out that's not just work or whatever.
Yeah, it's got to be something else.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I'm a blue belt, right? And I'm in this really, really good gym. I have one of the instructors is this world champion guy who's fantastic. One of the instructors is his buddy who's also won the world champion. And then this other guy, Cesar Gracie, is this very, famous, well-known, classic jiu-jitsu guy, right? So I'm there. And what you're talking about is essentially being the blue belt on the mat. And somebody shows you something like, this is the move of the day. And you start doing it, right? Whatever the thing might be. And then the friend comes up. He's like, bro, don't do it like that. That's not right. And you're like, oh, but they're like, no, thumb in, not that. And you're like, okay, cool. So you start doing the thumb in instead of the 4 fingers inside for the original guy comes up. He's like, no, bro, you're doing it wrong. I told you 4 fingers. And so you're like, okay. And you're like kind of looking around. You're like, whatever you want me to do. And then the gym owner comes over. He's like, don't do this move at all. Forget the thumb. It doesn't matter. He's like, don't stop doing that. I'm like, he's like, it's not going to work. You're like, oh my, can you guys get together and talk?
Someone figure this out. Yep.
Right. And it's literally, okay, I will do whatever you guys tell me to do, but you have to agree on what to do. And I'm not for or against anything you want. I'm just not the person who's going to make the call. Like,
we're just going to provide the math.
Yeah, right.
It reminds me of the opposite problem we have now in society where your bias is fed to you all the time. Right. And I just had that this morning. A big debate in the Richins household is who's the GOAT of basketball, LeBron or Michael Jordan. And I have strong feelings on this. We could probably do an entire podcast on this, but you know, I keep sending my two boys. For me, it's Jordan, obviously, kid of the 90s. And so I put forward these, you know, I take pictures, snapshots of social media that argues that Jordan's the best and send it to him. And of course, one of my sons said, well, of course you think that because all you're being fed is feeds that say Jordan's the best. You've done this to yourself. And you do start to realize there is a bias with social media. And I'm getting more angry about my position related to Jordan because I'm fed that same position every single day. And you have to be careful about that in this world. I have this theory that society wasn't ready for social media and the internet. We weren't ready for it as a species. You get fed that bias over and over again, you're going to believe it. And that happens in the energy space too. People have biases. So guess what articles they get fed? The same articles that support the bias that they have. And that's not good for anybody.
Right. Right. And I think the problem with your son's articulation is they don't have empirical evidence with Jordan. They only see what they see now, and then they have to right. You could put your phone down and make a case. You're like, I remember when I was 16 watching the Bulls blank, 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 right? Yep. Like I remember Dennis Rodman blank, 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 right? Like I remember watching the Bulls and like hoping Dennis Rodman wouldn't foul out and like all of these different, like, okay, so I could put my phone down. My phone, yeah, maybe reinforcing my bias, but my bias exists before my phone. Your sons will never, they're biased because literally there aren't even two options. There's only one because they never saw the first option.
Never saw it. Yeah, every now and then I throw out Larry Bird just to mess with him a little bit.
Just to mess with him. Oh my, dude, do you remember the Jazz? The Jazz would always they were just, they had those like epic, just the epic series. Yeah, they were
tough,
man.
But you know, I mean, you just 6 championships with Jordan. I don't know how you argue against that.
Well, what you do is you say that the competition wasn't very good.
Well, that's
the number one thing people always say. They're like, yeah, but it's like, shut up, man. These were the best possible people that the world could produce at that time, right? And yeah, I know you have new people with like a crown now, but like they're the best that in 2050, they'll be like, yeah, but LeBron was the best they could produce at the time. It's like, shut up, man.
Well, and I will say, we've probably gone off topic here. I don't know if you're going to cut this or not. But I will say LeBron to me is probably number 2. Longevity, it's amazing. But in terms of the years that were played, I saw with my own eyes the difference between, I've seen them both play live. There is, Jordan's he just was a step above. In my opinion.
Well, and again, last thing we'll say, and we'll move on. I think there's also a question of who elevated a team, right? Like who elevated a program, and if we just look at that, who made their teammates better? There's no way you're going to say it's LeBron. Now there could be other things. If we want to count championships, that's a metric. If you want to count who improved the players around him, that's a metric. If you want to count like how many points were scored in a game, that's a metric, right? But dude, Jordan, when he was on teams, that was his whole like terrible mistake with like the Wizards, because like he obviously, people always talked about how he made you better when he was standing next to you, right? And that can be bastard as like, okay, let's push this as far as possible. Could you take a team like the Wizards that really weren't good and like insert like, well, turns out you can't.
Well,
do that,
he's 40 years old too. But The Last Dance was great to show all that. I know. Yeah, sorry, listeners, but little 90s basketball gets me excited.
Yeah, I never watched that documentary, The Last Dance.
Oh man, it's so good.
You know what the problem is? I'm too competitive. I get really anxious when I like try to, and I also don't hero worship. Like I don't like, Jordan was cool to watch when I was a teenager. That's fine. I don't care. Like I only watched frankly because my mom was watching. She's like, you should watch this. It's pretty cool. I'm like, oh, awesome. Now it's like, I can't get into it.
Yeah, it's worth it for the listeners. It's such a good documentary. I think it's 10 hours. I mean, it's 10 episodes. It's a lot.
What kind of life goals do you have? You're spending 10 hours watching about someone else's career. Like,
Hey,
I
you
want to
know what?
watch. I want to watch a series and 1 hour of like how Idaho Powers crushed the rest of the power world in the United States. That's what I'd much rather see.
You like energy over basketball. You are unique. I'm
saying
not even sure I'm there.
I would rather watch. I'm not watching an hour of either.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like,
Can we all agree outdoor Idaho's pretty cool? Did you ever watch that show on PBS?
No, dude.
Okay, well, never mind.
Like,
Back to energy.
You know what I did last night? This is what I did last. I get home. I'm smoked from like 12 hours of interviews and editing and all this stuff. I get home last night and the wife plays on the, club masters water polo team. She goes off to practice. I'm there with my boys. It's like 5:45, 6. I'm like, dude, we need to get outside. And within 10 minutes, we have lighter fluid, the fire pit, and like a 6-foot flame going in the yard. And they like, I go get this cherry tree that like I cut this big branch, and they're like, going, they have their shirts off. It wasn't even hot last night. They have their shirts off. They're like
Lord of the Flies.
Dude, that's exactly what it was. I was like, what? And this is really funny. Like, here it is, 7 o'clock, sun's down, right? So it's getting darker. They keep lighting these sticks on fire on the end. And of course, as boys do, they're running through the yard, throwing them up like they're drum majors, right? And there's this spinning, glowing stick. They're throwing it up everywhere, by the way. So I almost got hit like 10 times, right?
Yeah.
But they got a hatchet and they're like hitting things and lighting it. They're like, ah!
Way better than The Last Dance, right?
This is the thing. Like, what am I going to trade sitting on the couch? Just marveling at someone else's successes when I have the 4-wheeler going and a 6-foot bonfire in my yard? No, man. I'm a person of the world. I'm a person of my journey, not his journey.
For sure. And that's another reason you're in Idaho is you can do those types of things.
I know.
But I mean, I miss the 80s and 90s. There's no question about it. I think the 90s were maybe a little bit better because you had a little bit of technology, but you're starting to get email, because email's great. The internet's great. Where I think we weren't ready is this, social media constantly fed your bias. It's tough.
Yeah. You know what I miss from the 80s and 90s? I miss the commercials.
Yeah.
Do you remember seeing a commercial for something and be like, dude, I need
it.
That.
They were effective.
I need that. Like, I need the Ninja Turtle that converts back into like the turtle before the ooze, and then like the shell pops off and you flip the legs down, but like, or like the little army tank, or like there were all of those
back then
things.
you had to go work for it. Now you just look on Amazon, you push a button, it's going to be at your door the next day.
No, dude, you go to Toys R Us. Don't you remember going to Toys R Us?
Well, no, I'm saying then you did. I agree. You had to work for it. You had to go to Toys R Us.
You had to physically
if you
go
even had
somewhere,
one, we didn't have one in Boise, so you're going to Spokane, Toys R Us. It's a big deal. You waited months to get whatever, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. It was a big deal.
You had to wait months to like make the trip to Spokane.
Yeah. I mean, Spokane was the big city back then. People don't realize that aren't from Boise. Like Boise, I mean, it was small.
Yeah.
Spokane was the big city.
Somebody told me actually that they used to go back to school shopping in Spokane. They're like, we didn't have a mall, like we didn't have this
That's
stuff.
what we
like
did.
you had to go back, or like you had to go get like all the notebooks and your clothes and all your things. How long is that to get there, by the way?
Oh, I mean, it's 6.5 hours. We had family in Wallace, Idaho, which is pretty close to Spokane. So yeah, we would do shopping in Spokane when we'd go visit for Thanksgiving or whatever in Wallace, Idaho, which, by the way, big shout out to Wallace. If you've never been there, it's a pretty neat place. The Hiawatha Trail near Wallace is really fun to do with kids. It's beautiful. Highly recommend checking that little city out.
Okay, perfect. Listen, I was just checking that we have plenty of time. We got to hit transmission.
Okay.
So there are two notable issues around. Okay. First off, sorry for the digression, everyone.
No. Yeah.
It's like
I'm fine if
you're a
you're
working
fine.
man. Like,
Yeah.
you got stuff to do. And anyway, Toys R Us. Okay. So irrigation and then rooftop solar. The transmission is this thing that I didn't even know existed until recently. Here's the thing. We have transmission, which is the highway to get the groceries to, let's say, the delivery center. And then we have distribution, which is, okay, we need to get this bag of rice to this person. We need to get this pineapple to this person, blah, blah, blah. And the transmissions are like the city streets and the neighborhood streets that get all of the power or the groceries, if you're delivering groceries, to the person. So you have these gigantic transmission lines that are transmitting 500 megawatt hours or 1,000 megawatt, or have the capacity to do that. and they transmit them both ways, by the way, right? That gets power to localized areas from generators. And then once it gets to the localized area, that's when you start distributing it to the individual areas.
By the way, that all happens in a fraction of a second.
Yeah.
Right. The transmission.
Yeah.
You know, if it's generated on a transmission line, it travels 186,000 miles per second. Not quite that, but close.
Right.
So it's instantaneous. And these lights right now are being lit up by energy that we may be buying hundreds of miles away.
Okay.
At this moment.
So we have the distribution lines. Those are like the power lines that everybody sees through the neighborhood, or they're buried, or
a lot of people think they're telephone poles or whatever. You hear that. Yep.
Right. So those transmission lines, those don't, first off, they don't have to carry that much electricity because you're only going to, compared to a transmission line, right? And also, you don't see these gigantic like 20-year projects with like putting up distribution lines, because you can put up a neighborhood and either, put up power lines like you see in this neighborhood, or you could do underground. But it's like, okay, that's just the thing. Like, we're just getting the power from wherever to these houses. But transmission lines, these are things that take decades at times to get built. And they are opening markets to purchase and sell power across the Western grid. And these are things that are really important because they allow Idaho Power to either purchase power at a discount or sell power to a market that might need power from Idaho Power at certain times. Like Idaho Power obviously has a glut of power at times if you have, let's say solar. You can't stop solar from being produced. You can't flip a switch and stop it. And in the event that you have a glut of power, you can sell that power to somebody who really needs it, right? Or there's a market that has not the same kind of energy security. So they might have plants that go down, or generation areas, or transmission lines that go down. They're like, hey, Idaho Power, we have this transmission line to you. We will pay you anything for power. Like, give us power. And you're like, hey, man.
And all those dollars flow through this PCA mechanism and go directly back to customers. Again, Idaho Power doesn't make money or lose money on these trades, just the way our system works. So you're right. It flows through this mechanism. We have good years. We have years that aren't as good. If it's a good year, you'll see a price decrease, which we did in 2025 based on that PCA mechanism. We were able to sell energy at the right price. We were able to buy it at the right price. And because of that, customers' rates went down because it's a complete pass-through.
Okay.
A couple things about transmission. So we talked about those models. When you have growth like we do, I mean, we are one of the fastest growing, if not the fastest growing utility in the nation for a variety of different reasons that goes to residential growth, irrigation growth, large commercial growth, data centers. We have all that right now. You can serve that two ways. You can build your own generation resources, or you can build transmission lines and import and export energy. What the models say, so what we'll do with these models is we'll put in different transmission projects. We'll take them out. We'll put them in. At the end of the day, it says, hey, Idaho Power, there are two transmission lines that really are cost effective for customers based on this buying and selling. One is called Boardman to Hemingway. It's a project that goes from Idaho up to Oregon. And there's one called the Southwest Intertie project that goes from Idaho, middle of Idaho, down to the desert Southwest.
And these are classically referred to as the B2H.
Yes.
That's Boardman
to Hemingway.
And then you have the SWIP.
You have the SWIP line, yep.
And the SWIP line was also tied to the Lava Ridge project, right?
Not tied to the Lava Ridge project.
Okay, they would have used that transmission line to get to excuse me.
It's hard to say what they would have used it for.
I heard it first when it was related to the Lava Ridge project, but
it gets that because it's the same developer. It's a developer called LS Power. We are a part of it too. So sometimes it gets tied together. I can tell you Idaho Power's interest. So
just to be clear, SWIP has nothing to do with Lava Ridge then.
Lava Ridge isn't happening, and SWIP still shows in our models. We were never, we were never in a position to buy Lava Ridge. Power. It wasn't our project. It's not happening right now. SWIP is, because it's still a very valuable project for Idaho Power and its customers. I'll explain why.
Could I ask one more question? Yep. Why was there the articulation? Excuse me.
Same
the
articulation.
Developer. Okay, so people just came out. They're like, "Hey, these are going together, and everybody's going to like rob Idaho of their power."
And there's a view that they're going to use some of that Lava Ridge energy and send it through SWIP outside of Idaho.
That's what I was told.
It wasn't our project. They were trying to sell to Idaho folks through that RFP process.
Man, I met with people about Lava Ridge, and this is literally what I was told was this is a federal project. They're going to generate all this power in our backyard, and then it's going to get shipped right down to Southern California. I was, again, and I'm not saying I was accurate, but like, this is what they're like, yeah, that's what's going to happen. I'm like,
so
oh no.
So it's not a federal project. It's an independent power producer. They were hoping to build that project and use a fair amount of it for Idaho customers, but they have to compete and win through that RFP process that I talked about earlier. And the project has, for all intents and purposes, it's dead now. SWIP for us is very different. Now, would they have used SWIP to send energy to other areas? They might have, but Lava Ridge is no longer a project.
Sure. Okay.
Here's what Idaho Power cares about with SWIP and why Idaho customers should care. There's a market down in the desert Southwest. There's basically two major markets, maybe three in the Western United States. There's the Mid-Columbia market, which is near Portland, Oregon area. That's where B2H goes. And when I say market, it's just where there's a lot of generation resources, a lot of transmission lines. We call it a trading hub.
Sure.
Because if you can get there, you have a lot of opportunities to bring low-cost energy back to you. SWIP is the same way. It's called the Palo Verde markets in the desert Southwest. Idaho Power got involved in the SWIP project for one reason. During the wintertime, instead of building facilities in Idaho, our models show the cheaper thing to do is to tap into that market, because a lot of projects sit idle because it's winter. It's 50 degrees down there. Nobody's using energy. They build for this massive peak in the summer where there isn't a lot of excess energy in the summer, but there's a lot in the winter. We've had multiple instances where if we could tap into that market, we would have saved our customers millions of dollars. So what we did is we became a part of SWIP for one reason.
When you say you became a part of SWIP,
we are a part owner now of it.
Okay.
So here's what we own.
So you guys have invested in the project saying, hey, public utility, if we can become part owner in this project and get the benefits of this project in specific times of years, we will save millions and millions of dollars, which justifies the expense.
Even more than that, we put it into the integrated resource plan, that whole process with public comment. The integrated resource plan said, if you build SWIP for your customers, it'll save your customers significant dollars. So then we started to be involved with it. We worked with the developer. We said, hey, we want 500 megawatts south to north, importing energy to us during the wintertime. That is our ownership interest. It's actually 250. The other 250 is a leased interest, but for all intents and purposes, it's 500 megawatts south to north to import energy, which we plan to do and which the models really love during the wintertime because the prices are so low in that area. Because again, projects are sitting idle. They're not being used. There's no need for them in the winter in the desert Southwest. B2H is exactly the opposite. Typically, the Pacific Northwest and the Mid-Columbia market, it peaks in the wintertime. That's when the most energy, not typically, it always, the most energy is used in the wintertime.
It's like rainy Washington and
it's cold. It's all these things.
Sure.
And so we want to tap into the Mid-Columbia market during the summertime, especially early summer when the irrigation folks are using their pumps to bring energy back to us for a certain price. And we've already bought a fair amount of long-term energy to do it. You can do it long-term or you can do it short-term.
Gotcha.
We'll go out on SWIP and we'll try to find someone to sell us 200 megawatts long-term. We'll have that for years. Let's say it's 200, 300 megawatts. Whatever the number is, we decide. And then in real time, you'll also look at trade, depending on the situation. We can talk about markets here in a second, but I think the big misunderstanding that's happened with SWIP in our eyes is that it's an import line for us. That's why we're interested in it. In fact, in our modeling, we cut off summertime imports, exports. We said if we just have it as an import line to bring energy to us, does it still add value to our customers? And the answer was absolutely. If you don't build this, the next portfolio is quite a bit more expensive. So if you see Idaho Power out there supporting SWIP, supporting a transmission line, supporting a project, it's because that project has shown up as least cost, least risk in the IRP modeling and will save customers millions. The problem with these projects not happening, and sometimes you have projects that get killed. Lava Ridge wasn't part of that process, so I'm not going to talk about that.
Sure.
If you don't build these least cost, least risk resources, guess what's going to happen? Rates are going to go up. It's going to be an affordability issue. If we don't build SWIP, I can guarantee you rates will go up.
And
for customers.
And that's because you, as the consumption goes up in the area, which you, Idaho Power, have nothing to do with. Consumption is going to go up because
we're obligated to take it.
You're obligated to try to serve these customers. Yep. You will have to go to other markets that are more expensive to fill that gap. You'll generate as much and as cheapest as you possibly can. And beyond that, you have to go to other generators and say, hey, who's got the power? We need 1,000 extra megawatts of power. Who's got this? They're like, hey, man, Guido over there has it, or like whoever has it. I don't know why I said Guido.
Guido,
like,
that is
yeah.
It's not the mafia, but
sure. But like imagine the power month. Somebody's like, hey man, I got power.
Yep.
It's gonna be a lot of money. And you're like, okay, I can't get this anywhere else because we didn't build these transmission lines to the super cheap power.
I'll give you a real world example.
Are you
MLK
Italian?
weekend. I do have some Italian in me.
I'm a quarter. I actually went to Italy this summer, and my great grandparents were from Lucca, Italy.
Yeah,
which is great. So I guess I can say Guido.
My mom's main name's Marconi, so that should give you an idea.
I think mine was like it doesn't matter. Anyway.
But anyway, Martin Luther King weekend. Give you an example. 2 winters ago, super cold. We might have even mentioned this the first time. In the Pacific Northwest, where 90% of our trading occurs, prices were out of this world expensive. $1,000, over $1,000 a megawatt hour, which is millions of dollars a day if you start buying that.
Right.
We would have loved to have gone south, which we could have done with SWIP, and brought energy to us over that 3 or 4 day period. Prices were a tenth of the price. Would have saved us millions of dollars, but we didn't have SWIP. So it was a real world example. So we had to buy it from the Pacific Northwest.
And that was this winter?
And that was 2 winters ago.
2 winters ago.
In the winter. And we were running into some issues. We had some problems with our hydro facilities. We had some problems with natural gas facilities. It was just one of those weekends where sometimes this stuff happens. It's all real time. We responded, things were fine, but we spent a lot of money. Let me talk about B2H. B2H, the first towers are going up right now. Any idea how long it took us to permit a transmission line? This is not a nuclear facility. It's not something that releases energy or is, harmful anyway.
How long?
We are 20 years into it. We started in 2006.
Why?
I mean, it's a death of 1,000 cuts. I mean, I could go into the details over 20 years. It would take a long time. It would
take about 6 months.
But between state and federal regulations, lawsuits, special interests being able to get multiple bites at the apple, you find yourselves 20 years later. It was so bad that I finally got to go on Squawk Box on national news, CNBC, to tell the story of B2H because people were like, how can it take 20 years to permit, not build, to permit a transmission line? We're building it right now, and our models show that versus building our own resource in Idaho saves customers hundreds of millions of dollars. Hundreds of millions of dollars. So if for some reason we would not have built B2H, which we are now, that will impact rates. So it's a tough situation with this permitting because we understand people don't want this in their backyard, and it's very real. And I'm here to tell you right now, I appreciate that. We're going to try to work with communities. But the other hand, you look at a SWIP, it's going to save customers so much money. It goes down south. It's just relatively desert land. If you can't permit a transmission line through that area to save customers money, what can you do? So the argument has been California is going to use this line, which California is a part owner. It's a nonprofit in California that's called CAISO. To take energy from Idaho, and it's going to be a problem. First of all, Idaho Power has nothing to do. Our interest is south to north. Second of all, whether projects are built in Idaho and those resources are sent to some other location, the local communities will have a say in that. Right. What we're worried about is Idaho Power and Idaho customers.
And it's not like once a transmission line is built, it's like a back door and somebody's going to rob your kitchen.
No.
They don't get
We'll make deals that are good for our customers.
And if they're not in Idaho Power customers' best interest, then Idaho Power won't make them.
Well, let's talk about markets just really quick. You hear a lot about markets. Is Idaho Power in a market or are they not in a market? There are lots of different markets across the United States. So when you hear the term Idaho Power is in a market, this utility is a market, don't just assume all markets are the same. They're all different.
Sure.
We are in a real-time market with the Western United States. 80% of the energy is traded in this market in real time. So what that means is back in the old days, We'd buy and sell energy by picking up the phone, calling folks.
Sure.
Pretty inefficient. What this does now is if we can meet our own load in Idaho, we can turn around and offer some products, generation resources,
Sure.
into this market. This market has algorithms, and it decides what's the most efficient way to trade for us and others to make us money. We don't have to do it. It's voluntary. But we do it a lot because it saved our customers millions and millions of dollars every single year. Now, what you'll hear is Idaho Power is trading with California. The market is the Western Energy Imbalance Market. It is the entire Western United States. There is a nonprofit in California that runs the market, but the rules are created by stakeholders that are in that market. And we can get in and out of the market if we want to. If it's really bad for us, we're not going to get in the market. We can put a resource in and say, here's the price. We will not sell anything less than this price. Let's say it's $50 a megawatt hour. Let's say it's hydro production. We can say, this is the least we'll sell it at. You put it in the market. If they don't find a buyer, they don't find a buyer through these algorithms. If they do, the difference between what it takes to produce the energy, let's say it's $10 and the $50 we just sold it, that $40 goes back to customers through this PCA mechanism.
But you guys won't be strong-armed to sell the power.
No.
So like
we're only going to do if it's in the benefits of our customers.
Yeah, I did read an article from somebody recently where it was like, oh, they're going to be forced to sell power. It's like, no, that's not how, like, if you have a megawatt in your hand, you're like, listen, you can have this, but it costs you this much. Like, there's nobody coming in and strong-arming you and taking it. It's like, no, man.
You set the price.
The only thing that is in question is, do I have this megawatt? Do I want to sell it to you? And if I'm selling it to you, is it beneficial to me? And if it's not, or do you have a megawatt and can I buy it? The only thing that's being discussed is, look, can we engage in this market through these transmission lines?
You need the transmission.
Right. And then after that, we're just connected. There's no obligation to do trade.
It's a voluntary market, real-time market. We are looking at a day-ahead market. In the day-ahead market, you would do a similar thing with the Western United States. You would go in, except you do it a day ahead. Here's all generation resources. Hey, market, dispatch and figure out what the best use of our resources are. And then you get paid, and it's optimized who runs what systems where, what transmission is used throughout the Western United States. The day-ahead market is voluntary. Even if we join it, any given day we can get in or we can pull out. It's an economic market. It's not even a reliability market. We have to show that we can reliably meet our needs in Idaho. Then we put this energy into the market. There is a third type of market that we are not too excited about. It's called an RTO, Regional Transmission Organization. In that market, you give up your assets. People are worried about Idaho giving up its assets. And in RTO, you give up your assets to a third party. So someone else runs the assets for the whole Western United States. Here's why we're worried. If you look at RTOs across...
Are we part of an RTO?
We're not. No, and our position is we shouldn't be. And if you look
ever, that's a terrible idea.
Ever is where we're at. I mean, you hate to say ever, but my opinion right now is I don't see us doing it because you give up control of your assets
and they don't
to a third party.
Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt. Keep going.
But one quick thing about that, you look across the United States. In the Eastern United States, they have RTOs. Look at their rates. Their rates are dramatically higher than ours. Everywhere there's an RTO, there's high rates. Because it's just not as efficient and people are giving up control. We have our system. We're going to run it the best way for our customers. So we are not in favor of that market. That's why I say all markets aren't the same, because you'll hear people even in the legislature say, we need a market or we don't need a market. And it's like, well, hold on. It depends on what market we're talking about. If you're talking about a real-time market that's voluntary, we like it. Saved our customers a lot of money. If you're talking about a day-ahead market that's voluntary, you can get in and out when you want. We like it. If you're talking about an RTO, I've said this before, it's basically like you jump to that RTO, you're married. You know, when you're in the day-ahead market, you're dating.
Yeah, right.
You know, you're not in it. When you're in RTO, you give up your assets. There's a new control room. The control room you visited, there'll be one control room for the whole Western United States. Sure. People are concerned that control room could be run by California interests. Get it? Like, that, but that's when you give up your assets. That's not what we're doing in the first two.
That just seems, you know what that's like? I'll tell you what it's like. Everybody can relate to this. It's like scrolling on little reels, like you like something? Great. You watch it. You don't, you scroll right past it.
Right.
Versus you're committed to a 3-hour podcast that you can't turn off. And you don't know.
It's a whole different
it
level.
It could be great, or
Yep.
it could be a crazy person that you hate.
Right.
Or it could be what's worse than a crazy person. You can at least be like, this is crazy. Like, bleh. The worst is like, oh my God, I'm going to die listening to this. This is so boring.
So boring.
They're talking
We've
about
all
Michael
had those
Jordan.
podcasts. Oh my gosh, LeBron, I thought this was an energy. I thought this was about Idaho. What are we doing here?
Oh, and what does RTO stand for?
Regional Transmission Organization.
Okay, why would anybody do that? Is it like is it that people that have energy insecurity and they don't have enough assets themselves to like make favorable trades? So let's all band together.
You are bringing assets together. And in theory, you can optimize through that. The people that believe we should do RTOs, I'm not even going to, there's different opinions on this.
Sure.
The customer service rankings, the cost, the reliability in those areas is way less than ours. Bottom line. There have been blackouts in those areas. Really, California is basically, it's called an independent system operator, but California is part of really what's an RTO. There's one control system for the entire state, multiple utilities. They don't run their own system like we do in other areas. I mean, look at their rates. Look at the reliability they've had. We feel like we have the lowest rates in the nation, some of the best reliability. I mean, 1 outage per customer per year.
Sure.
Why would we change this? But these voluntary markets do allow us to optimize. And we do believe we're going to have to make a decision on the day-ahead market soon. And there's a lot of folks that are saying you shouldn't do it because it's a California market. No, it's a Western market, but it is run by a California nonprofit. The concern is that California influence will be put into that. And right now they've made some changes so that it's going to be an independent group outside of California that runs it. That's great. We think it's a positive change. We would have been interested anyway because it's voluntary. We can get out when we want to get out any given day. So if it's not good for us being Idaho customers, we're not going to do it. I assure you that. We don't want rate increases. That's not good for us. It's not good for the people we're caring for. So we are doing this. We are going where the money shows it's most beneficial to customers, not only in markets, in projects. We would not be doing SWIP if it wasn't beneficial to Idaho customers in a massive way. And B2H, same thing.
And we don't have to take your word for that necessarily, right? Like, first off, you can believe Adam Richins or not.
Okay? Yeah.
Totally fine. But we also have the Public Utility Commission that we have as consumer defense. So they're the ones that know all the numbers. They're the ones that know all the details. And they look through all this, and sometimes it takes a long time, and they come up with, is Idaho Power actually doing what Adam Richins is saying and working in the Idaho Power customers' best interest with these transmission lines? Yes or no? And they look at it and they say, yeah, that's
the commission's
correct.
Looking at it right now, the case
Right.
with SWIP. The Idaho staff, which is kind of works with the commission, somewhat independent, that is really kind of the group that pushes back on Idaho Power and other ideas.
It's called Idaho staff?
It's just, we just call it the Idaho Commission staff.
Okay.
They came out hugely in favor of the Southwest Intertie project because of the dollars, the
Right.
value, the import value we get from that project. The other problem is 500 megawatts, if that project's not built, do we have time to build another project to meet some of this load? Like if for some reason the project has a problem, we'd have to turn around right now. You can't get a natural gas turbine for 5 to 6 years, 4 to 5 years. So we're not building that because this is supposed to be done in 28. So we're looking at solar and storage. And right now the models show that a bunch of solar and storage to meet that need would be more expensive by millions than this Southwest Intertie project for our customers. So when you see us promoting something, that's what we're doing. Sometimes these projects are ours, like we're a part owner in SWIP. Sometimes you'll see us promoting projects that aren't ours. So like, why is Idaho Power involved with this project that's a different developer?
Well, because you could have an interest, and they're like, they've committed to help you transmit or purchase power.
It's
right?
because our models have shown that the project is good for customers.
Right.
That's why.
That's a silly question, though. It's like say I want to open a hardware store, and there's a developer who's like building a unit that I don't own, but I'm going to lease from them. I'm like, yes, Matt's hardware store is going to be awesome. And then I go to city council. I'm like, please build this thing. They're like, he doesn't even own it. Why is he promoting? It's like, because it's going to be beneficial to me and the community, because I'm going to open a hardware store that's going to be baller. And like, we're all going to get, shovels and stuff cheaper or better or whatever it is.
Yeah. When an independent power producer builds a project, Idaho Power doesn't make money. We don't lose money, but customers, if it's the right project, will benefit. And so that's why you see us getting involved if it's not our project.
Adam, listen, I really appreciate you explaining these things. I don't want to take any more of your time today. You came in extra early to get this in. Irrigation rates, transmission lines, and rooftop solar. Is there anything you want to hit right now? And again, we don't have to save the world.
And we
today.
hit markets too.
And we hit markets, yeah. And LeBron versus Jordan.
Which was the most important thing. And that's the one I actually get most frustrated about in my two teenage boys that really, it feels like they don't know what they're talking about. People know me in the energy industry I'm pretty open. Like I really feel like balance is the key to our industry. Sure. And so, I don't mind anybody's opinion. When my kids say that LeBron James is better than Michael Jordan, I tend to get a little frustrated.
Oh my God.
Of course, I have the bias sent to me every day in my social media feed and why Jordan. So part of it's my own problem, and I got to work through that. But that's the one. That
just gets the blood.
Gets my blood.
Yeah, my hands are going to
see it. Like it's
you should come do some jiu-jitsu with me. It'd be great.
Yeah, I'd love to. I used to box a little bit, but I have a herniated disc in my neck, so I can't do any of that stuff anymore.
That's a little rough. Maybe we'll stick with chess. You a big chess fan?
I'll play a little bit of chess. Yeah,
chess is the best.
I kind of like tennis now. I play a lot of old man tennis.
Okay, well, I have a mini ping pong table. Okay, so it's a little bit bigger it's about 6 feet by 2.5, 3 feet. Dude, you have to own every inch of that table. Like your accuracy gets so a big table, you can hit it, you can make a lot of no, dude. On the
no mistakes.
You have to be late because if you want to sneak one past, it's like. Pew,
so who wins when you play your kids?
The kids have no chance. The wife and I actually have a trophy that we got custom made that goes back and forth between us. And
sounds like you're not competitive at all.
Not at all.
Yeah. You know what's funny though is they're going to be kicking your butt here soon. There were things that I used to really just dominate my kids in, and it's like there are very few things now, including intellect. I feel like they're beating me in that. I'm like, that was the one thing I had.
My son, my 13-year-old, started to talk to me about chemistry and some other things today, and I was like, oh no. Comes.
I know.
Here it comes. They're
get smart. Although I will say with teenage boys, one second I'm like, wow, you're really smart. And the next second I'm like, how do you survive? You are a moron. Yeah.
How do you remember to breathe?
I probably shouldn't be saying this on air. Maybe you'll cut this out too. I don't know how it works.
I love it. Listen, thank you for coming in. We'll do it again.
Okay. Thanks, man.